Hello there, kia ora. No doubt you heard the news yesterday that the government has found funding to be able to give $604 million over the next 4 years to Pharmac to be able to bring in those 13 cancer meds that they kind of foolishly promised during the election campaign, along with about 26 other cancer medications. Not cancer medications, just medications in general. And it's a really interesting thing to look at. Now, first of all, this is a good thing. Getting in medications that are going to help people, nobody is going to be able to criticize that. But the taxpayer union's still going to use it to take pot shots at other things like the creative sector, which was, and this is true, the area of our GDP growth that saw the largest increase between 2022 and 2023 at, I think, 4.6%. Primary sector actually shrunk by 2%. Anyway, this is still a really good outcome for those people who need these meds or people who might need these meds later on. Definitely no complaints about that at all. And unlike the taxpayer union's weird explanation that apparently the money's coming from they don't know, this money is being funded from next year's budget. So it'll be basically $600 million that they can't spend on education or health next year because they've already spent it this year. And who knows, they might have been planning to do this next year anyway, because we know Nicola Willis said straight after the budget that she was going to do it next year. You can't do everything in the first year. That would be silly, especially, promises about keeping people alive. So while they might try and tell us that this was something they've been working on for a while to get right, the fact of the matter is it does feel like a little bit of a scramble. And it has been kind of needed for the government because they've had a really terrible PR week, and this has washed all that away. I mean, don't forget we had Christopher Luxon's trip last week to Japan where things didn't go great for the C-lister, but at the same time we've also had other issues pop up like the ferry and what happens after that, because it's really highlighted the fact that we need to update our fleet of inter-islanders. And so the government's gone back and said, no, we will definitely be getting ferries now, even though that was literally the first thing that they cancelled so they could get their $2.9 billion in tax cut landlords, which means that we're now at the back of the queue for getting new ferries, which means it's going to be 3 or 4 years at least before they get delivered instead of next year, which is what would have happened if they just kept the contract and not given out those tax cuts to landlords that had been set up beforehand. Yeah. Oh, and it turns out that the advisory group that they're looking at has turned around and said, you're going to have to get smaller ferries because that's just how these things work. And smaller ferries to replace ferries that are already running at capacity in a country that's got a massively growing population base, I'm sure is a really, really good idea, and nothing could possibly go wrong with this vital piece of infrastructure that we have that literally connects our country in the middle. On top of that, there's also issues around announcements that were made on Sunday, particularly around youth crime. They finally announced their policies around youth boot camps. They're going to be pouring in over $5 million to put through 10 people in the first run. Now, some of that is capital investment, basically making sure they've got what they need to physically to be able to run these boot camps. And while every single piece of research and every single time this has happened, it has failed, the research all says it's never going to work. Well, the government just says we're going to do things differently by doing exactly the same thing we did before. But hey, people aren't talking about that quite so much now because cancer meds for everybody. It's just like how people are no longer talking about the fact that Auckland Transport on Monday morning decided to release the information that they had on their adjusted death rates. These are the expected rates of more fatality crashes within Auckland city streets, and they've bumped it up 10% because of specific changes that this government is making around speed levels around the city. That's not a good look for any government at all. So yeah, this is a PR win for the National Party and the government in power. It's really good for people who need these medications. Absolutely, and I'm not going to criticize that whatsoever. But there is an air of cynicism around all of it because we were told it wasn't going to happen, and suddenly it is because of public pressure. And this is the best part for me, outside of those people getting what it is that they need to survive. It shows that this government will cave to pressure when that pressure is really, really bad. And there's lots of things coming up that people are angry about and that people are getting upset about and that they want to put pressure on the government about. Like that minimum wage that they've decided to wipe the subsidies for disabled people, or the funding that went to Whaikaha. People are pissed off about that. In fact, I'm pissed off about it. I'm going to Wellington tomorrow to go and talk to people about this. But hey, enough pressure on the government. They clearly buckle, hopefully, more often, because the outcome when they do is clearly good for more people, like those who need these cancer meds.